Christina, you've mentioned that the gender pay gap is a myth. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is that the idea that, on average, a man is paid, 25 cents more, 23 cents more for the same work as a woman, there's just no evidence of that.
Okay.
No, can I explain why? Can I explain? And
Sure.
Jeering at an idea or clapping at an idea doesn't make it true or false. What matters is the evidence. So let's look at the evidence. And even feminist economists agree with this. If you look at the gap in the workplace, what you find is you have to account for relevant differences and take into account variables. For example, the wage gap in the United States it varies, but people usually say, women earn 76 cents for every dollar.
White women earn 76 cents on the dollar.
Yes, and the highest earners are Asian men, and the gap between Asian men and Asian men and white men is bigger than the gap between men and women. So why would that be? Is it because the system is rigged in favor of Asian men? Well, actually, what you do are the proper controls, like how many years of education did they have? What did they study in college? You do that with men and women, and the gap begins to narrow. And is it because employers are cheating them out of their salary? That we don't find evidence for. What we find evidence is that men and women, on average, make different decisions. For example, college majors, the highest paying college majors, like electrical engineering or petroleum engineering, you find far more men in that major. For women, you find a lot women going into psychology, sociology, early childhood education. Those jobs may be very fulfilling, but they don't pay as much. And they're just, as I said, more women.
But you're ignoring...
I would like to bring, because you mentioned data and stats, so let me show you something. This is from the World Economic Forum. This is an extensive study, and this is a 10-year study, and there is definitely, this is obviously the summary, but I've read the whole study. It seemed to really suggest, and World Economic Forum is an apolitical organization, it's clear that there is some sort of a gap, and it is that 20 cents mark globally. So
now you're going global or the United States?
Global, absolutely.
All right, because there's a different story. In different countries, it's
Sure.
different. But if we can understand the United States, we can understand other places. I didn't deny there are places that have systemic bias. There are countries that are absolutely patriarchal. The United States is.
Come on, let's.
Is a society where women and men have achieved equality before the law, and if your employer
I mean, there's all kinds of data out there, but the pay gap is not under dispute, and there are all kinds of reasons why women don't necessarily go into petroleum engineering, and those reasons have everything to do with misogyny and the fact that women are not allowed to succeed in these fields. It's incredibly difficult to go into engineering.
It is difficult.
I have some expertise in this. My dad's an engineer, and I went to an engineering university to get my PhD, where it was 77% male. And so we have all of these systemic biases that push women into certain fields and that make other fields incredibly inhospitable. Like, I teach at a state university, so everyone's salaries are easy to find. And so even when you control for education and pretty much everyone has a PhD, within fields, men make more. And so the pay gap is not this imagined thing. The pay gap is very real here in Australia, it's real in the United States, it's real in Japan, and we have to start demanding that this be a thing of the past, and suggesting that, oh, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and that's why women make less, is just so insulting. And it doesn't take into account other things like race and ethnicity. So while 77 cents to the dollar is the statistic in the United States for white women, 54 cents is what Latina women make on the dollar. And so we have to also look at how women from non-white races and ethnicities are dealing with an even greater pay gap. And it just cannot be wished away with this idea that the gap is imaginary. It isn't.